Bag of bones with cell phones, black goo so sublime on your spine, sending instinct to your mind over matter, flight or fight. Embrace the might, disgrace the light of the world. You are not a hermetically sealed vacuum protecting the body with bones packed in flesh, organs, each with a designed purpose, so as the lung clear, purify the ether that you breathe, so the heart moves the life in the blood for those chosen to descend from the flood. So you are electric. If you were all gold, you would not have really a magnetic discharge at all, but you do. You have almost no gold in you, but lesser quality metal provides most of our electrical connections in our body. You have heard that water and electricity do not mix. What are you doing here? How are you? How are you then? Because you are body, flesh, blood, and electricity. Welcome, everybody, to Mud Flood Was Armageddon. The Mud Flood was the Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they are willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. Full disclosure, I woke up less than 20 minutes ago from a deep, deep sleep because I had this scheduled and the Lord wanted me to do it somewhat on time. Now, Sergio, I got a link for you. I'm not sure if you're here, if you still want to do it. I read that message 5 minutes before I was, I read it at about 7 o'clock. So that's the deal. If your friend is there, I would love to talk to him about it. In the meantime, kind of an interesting title. I would hope you think, how much does a rock or a hen weigh? You're supposed to be reminded of the joke. Is it a joke or what is it when you say, hey, let's say you're on a construction site and you say, go get me a hammer for and a hen weigh. And they'll go, well, what's a hammer for? To drive nails. Well, what's a hen weigh? About 3 or 5 pounds. Will you go get me the hammer? What are you talking about? Just a way to mess with people's mind. But rocks weigh differently. Granite weighs more than soapstone. Gold weighs more than silver, twice as much. And silver is one of the most heavy metals that you can have. If you know what is in a rock, because all of its weight is the same, I want you to think about, why wouldn't you know that, like, oh, if this rock displaces this much water and it takes up that much space, but it weighs this much, doesn't there have to be a precious metal in it? Because as I'm going to show, along with some other things, there's different weights. Is it really that hard that you can't figure out? Well, there must be gold and silver or the few other things that are in that price range that make this rock that heavy. Well, all they're doing when they dig in the big mountains in Colorado, they're just digging down in the hardest rocks there are and pouring chemicals on it because there's gold in it. Because it's a flat earth nation, the golden age passed. The stones are crying out. So let me know when, and then I'll hit that link. In the meantime, let's do it this way. I'm going to share the screen. I'm going to fire the thing. Disclaimers and fair use statements are a part of my life. I think it's nice. So I do the screenshot thing. I come up with this. That's on the wall of one of those secret buildings for the telephone. And they had a special woman author, not author, artist, design this mural. And I just think, wow, look, it's the telephone wires connecting the world. It's that building at Thomas Street. That's the shot I got it from. AT&T building, connecting the world. So silver per pound, a cubic pound of silver, 654 pounds. Let's say 655. Gold, 1,206. Copper, 560 pounds. Platinum, very heavy. Osmium, that's something that you're not going to find. So these are expensive metals that you would want that weigh more. But basic iron, you'll know, okay, that's not really a precious metal. But if you weigh a rock and it's jumping up there like with the gold and silver levels, how come you don't know what it weighs? How come you can't just figure it out that there must be this much in it? Because the pollution they do when they make gold today, when they have to get it out. So there is a way to assess how much gold is in a specimen. You can extrapolate. You build up. They built up. The stones were reserved in judgment. They have gold. Gold is so much heavier than the other substance, 15 times as heavy as most other rocks and minerals. So whenever you find one of those, a precious metal, there you go. It's going to affect the weight of what is around it. So how do they get the use of fees? Where did I get this from? Oh, I was reading this article. Use of fees. The secretary concerned shall use fees retained under this section for the following purpose. For payment of the following cost incurred by the secretary. Cost of securing trademark registrations. Cost of operating the licensing program under the section. For morale. For your morale, welfare, and recreation activities. I was way down. I'll show you. I'm way down at the end of this law. I got led here by reading you the Riot Act. Did you know the Riot Act was a real thing? Oh, this welfare. It provides what is a major defense acquisition program. The secretary that can do that, and they could just request money and tax, even if they want to use it for recreation and morale. Major defense acquisition program, except as provided, because I clicked on it, so it would have to give me its own definition for its Title 10 of the United States Code. It's like the only major code I think they stick to. And it means that, well, this is part of the term Major Defense Acquisition Program means Department of Defense Acquisition Program that is not a highly sensitive classified program. So you can buy a major defense, but it can't be highly sensitive. No, it wasn't that clear to me either. I did take a screenshot of this one in case I didn't forget it. The Cornell law describes this law here. National Defense Industrial Capability Funds may be used for, okay, this is from 2004. That's where the National Defense Authorization Act for the fiscal year of 2004, that's why I got the major defense acquisitions. So I clicked on that to get the definition. I was working hard for them. Oh, I guess I'm not working for the money. Hey, look, it's those clay pipes. This is being sold for $15. It was put in our local resale store. I would have bought it that day, but I was on a bicycle and I didn't. This can't fit in my backpack. That's only part of it. Pottery, like they find, what is it? Conspiracy RS. Look, from Charlestown. The same pottery they find all over the East with those same pipes are found here. And is this a spear? Would this clean up and you mount it on the end of a pole as a spear? The looks like Royal Dalton. They know who did these. I know two places that are like this where you can go and dig down and find this old pottery that the people who lived here before, the Native Americans, I believe, traded with the people from England for centuries before we decided that's enough of you. I think I'll kill you now. We've all seen this map. It doesn't come any bigger. I don't know where it came from. It shows Colorado, where I live, is doesn't even get affected, you know. But what's this? What is that? What is this? Okay, so we get flooded, but these things don't get flooded, and Cuba grows. Oh, I had to go back over some of this stuff today. Stressed out, had to go there. Now they want to prove, did we really do those things to you at Adams State University? I saw this in somebody sent me this in a video. Zach Mack Mayaduno, he sent me this. Was just I clicked a screenshot out of a video he sent me. It said, "My kid is an animal. Furries and Therians in child development from early last year, slightly different from a furry, but still in many cases, especially in childhood, falls under the category of playful imagination." I used to know somebody that was well, it's my wife's cousin. He was a first string at the Tennessee University of the Volunteers, and then he played some of those professional football games. He was in the league for 4 full years, but he only played in one game. But he was a professional football. He had a son, and he thought he had an imaginary friend. When we were around him, if it came up, we were supposed to act like he really existed. Luckily, it never came up when I was around. That's do re mi. I'm not into invisible friends for children. I heard it could be satanic. Gonna fly low. I hope I was sharing. Hey, flying high now. So I got this thing here, just found out, was hoping I was sending RJ a email. He's probably wondering, what's going on, man? Got a little humor break here. There you go. You see, in the desert, sometimes things look like buttons and they, you know, when you have a button, everything looks like a buttonhole. When you have a what? Sometimes things are too much for me. Or the Leatherman wave. RJ knows I like pocket knives. He sent me a thing. The weird fire one was I did Look at that. This is that video from Zach Makamudo. Mostly a lot of talking.
Time then that's different to now. And it's not different. The language is different. It's still trafficking, it's still murder, it's still torture. It's just got technology. It's got VR headsets. It's got media,
It's the
and
same play. It's recast with a
it
different setting
is.
and different
It
characters.
is. And they want people to look back. These
It was kind of weird, huh? Talking about this stuff.
urgency is based in a program because
Well, that's a globe Earth there. I just thought it was funny that this guy wears a mask.
Okay, it's extreme experience, and it is a logical response, really, when you get down to it, to just such an extreme experience. So for whatever the part is, as many parts as they are, as complicated as it is, whatever you were taught when you were young, whatever function, under whatever conditioned stimuli response sequence, whatever post-hypnotic suggestion was implemented, you have to get knowing yourself, never.
I get it. A lot of people coming out of everywhere. Was a good video. I listened to it. Everybody kind of gets the idea the Kabbalah is involved. What are you wearing the mask for, dude? Are you afraid they're gonna know who you are? Think they don't know who you are? Oh, man, I don't. A little melodramatic. Where's
Call
those?
for help, someone had to run. In fact, families would send the fastest runner to reach firefighters and police officers the same. So lives were indeed saved since voices could travel over the wire far faster than footsteps. Considering how much the positives outweighed the negatives, growth was rapid. And there
Worldwide growth was rapid.
had wires crisscrossing streets in every direction. These lines weren't just unsightly, they snapped in storms, overloaded poles, and created maintenance nightmares. But the more interesting shift happened inside people's homes. Now,
These buildings were found Star Fort style, cleaned up, and then decorated with these wires because as they could figure it out, they needed to do some labor to make it work, make it happen. Come to this town. Everything's up to date in Kansas City.
the more interesting shift happened inside people's homes. Now tethered to their walls by a ring, some found themselves waiting for calls and structuring their entire day around the device. This was a change for the worse. As previously, communication was well thought out in letters or personal visits, whereas the phone brought fragmented
No, my mommy can't come to the phone.
voice clips, faster, yes, but arguably less meaningful. Privacy also took a hit. Many early systems used party lines, where strangers could eavesdrop.
When I was a child, we had a phone that had party lights, and they said there was supposed to be different kind of rings, but our different kind of ring was for like 10 different houses. We shared the line. The phone rang, you picked it up and saw if it was it for me. Party line. That was like in somewhere in Arizona. I know I ended up living outside of Kearney, Arizona, going to a Navajo school because I was a suburb of Kearney. And by suburb, I mean it was the trailer park outside of town.
And soon enough, law enforcement joined the call, literally. As early as 1895, New York police were wiretapping suspected criminals, and hence the slippery slope of
What did he just say? When did they start tapping the party line? You're going to be a full-time party tapper.
were wiretapping suspected criminals, and hence the slippery slope of public service and surveillance had literally. As early as 1895, New York police were wiretapping suspected criminals, and hence the
1895.
slippery slope of public service and surveillance had begun. Though there was a comedic aspect to it all. The first known
Was there a time when everybody in the United States dressed in a uniform to go to work? The windowless skyscraper in New York was totally forbidden to know about it. Don't know about it. Then all of a sudden, that not Julian Assange, who's the other guy? The United States guy, Edward Snowden, said they're gathering all the information, and here's the leaked emails of where Hillary's a satanic witch, and we're spying on our friend Angela Merkel, who's also sketchy. They all love weird stuff. Gonna fly now.
burying the network. Under the streets, within massive switching centers and cable vaults, which began to appear across the city. Entire tunnels were dug to house the beating heart of the telephone.
No, they weren't. The tunnels were there. You know that. I know it, and the American people know it. But at certain times, they train certain people to do the things they need. Worldwide domination for Satan, from turning 1,000,000 kingdoms into 170 nations or whatever they got going here, to where you act like this is my nation, I'm going to die for it, or they'll kill you, making you die for it. How many movies have you seen of that come out in the last 30, 40 years about they were in this war and you got in the war, and young men, if you don't attack right now, I'm going to shoot you where you stand. I got to get shot now or maybe shot later. So they charged and they attacked and they died in the millions. Where's my mommy?
Were reinforced concrete bunkers hidden beneath the city's streets. Inside were miles of copper cable, splice boxes, and switching equipment, all of which was designed to be flood-resistant, tamper-proof, and, to the extent possible, invisible. These weren't just manholes with wires.
They weren't. I got to keep jumping around. That's why I got to act sarcastic. So, wow, the Bell telephone system, disguised buildings. I've mentioned Snowden. Look at the telephone system.
Communications regulation, AT&T had emerged as the central power, branding itself as, quote, the natural monopoly. It built out massive switching centers, which were first manual, but then electrical mechanical.
We're just sampling the video. We're not stealing the video. We've disclaimed it. We've claimed it. What's the address on Thomas Street? Show the building.
Something
Ooh,
nuclear resistant.
Weird.
And in 1974, on a quiet stretch of Thomas Street in Lower Manhattan, that something began to rise. Located at 33 Thomas Street, this 550-foot skyscraper had no windows, not one. It was designed by prominent architect John Carl Warnke.
He did something, but that building, it seems, was there made of wrought iron. Hey, is it? Look at those guys. They're pointing to the building.
In fact, Warnke shared a close personal relationship with Jacqueline Kennedy following JFK's assassination, a connection that adds an unexpected human layer to the story of this otherwise mechanical monument. What Warnke built here was
All right. Yeah, okay. Whatever. Phones and cell phones.
far behind. Sleep disruption, rising anxiety, shrinking attention spans. These aren't bugs in the system. They're features of a culture built on constant connection. And what keeps that connection alive?
Dopamine. They got you programmed to get dopamine hits off of likes and things on the videos. Cast iron building. See, this monstrosity, that building with no windows, that looks like a window. I don't want to play gotcha, but I can't help it. This is the 33 Thomas building, New York City. Get a little background. Did you see that? There was a previous site of a cast iron building. Cast iron is hard to make, but there were some cast iron architecture. There was does that say that there was some refinements made, but in the 1700s? Cast iron, all of a sudden in the 1700s, you could make cast iron really cheap and just say, well, you know what? For this brief window in time, we're going to make cast iron buildings like this. They look like a regular mud flutter, but it's cast iron. Huh. 1889, 1781. They want us to believe this. I've seen this picture. I think it's still there, isn't it? That looks like those chains on that one thing we looked at yesterday. Like I said, it's the Iron Bridge in Chokeville. I wonder if it's still there. I know you do too. Is it still there? Is there? Look, it's still there. Yay. Oh my. And they just snapped it in place. That's where it fits. That's where it was made for. That's how you do it back in when they look, we're making an iron bridge that DeSalt Paco is going to talk about in 2025. 20 years before the end of the world. I don't think that's original. But that wrought iron, if you keep it covered, it's doesn't rust very well anyway. Look, there's a lot of pictures of the iron bridge. There's the toll bridge for the house. Wonder if that's an original sign. This bridge being private property. Every time they pass over this bridge, every coach, hearse, chase, chair, or such like, you're going to pay some money. Ditto. For every horse, mule, ass, pair of oxen drawing, you owe money because they have this bridge. Let's say the mud flood was Armageddon. And there were a group of people, that were given the truth that, this is how it was done, but we have to be able to hide it as long as possible. Now, I would hope you would see that that's, okay, so there's not riveted. So we know that, they didn't invent the rivets yet. That's a big deal. This bridge was, so there's the cast iron. Just link it together. Wow. Come on, people. One more picture. Look, it's a castle. There's another cast iron bridge. Not as famous because it's not as old, but if you found a world and you knew it was going to happen, and there were kits around of how to build buildings, when you know how to be like, okay, I'm going to look for it. When I find one, we'll build it here. We can say, we built that. We can have a few pictures of buildings we built from the mud flood kits, because these things were built in kits. You read, I think, let's see, 1 Kings chapter 6, maybe it's 2 Kings, but there's a part where Solomon is talking to Hiram, and he's buying buildings from him that build whole star fort cities. And you buy it at one time. And when they put it together, it comes from the factory, able to be put together without the sound of a hammer being heard while they're putting it together. So these buildings, the AT&T long lines, what was exposed by the Snowden, previously they say it was a cast iron building, but then they could build a shell over it and hide it and say, now we built it all together. Each floor is 18 feet. Close. That's a lot. And so I guess there's a lot of these. What are these buildings? This is the international style buildings here. So it's also what they call the brick battery, not the battery like to store energy, but like, a town type. So all of these, the Olympic Tower, it's on Fifth Avenue too. I guess it must be this one, the Olympic Torch. Olympic Tower to the south. In the mid-ground, the air-giving Olympic and Cartier building. These are all on that street where the secret cast iron building is. That's now the AT&T building. I looked at this. It's the AT&T long lines, now known as 33 Thomas Street, windowless skyscraper, brutalist architecture. I wonder if John Warnke won a contest to design it. I wanted to look at the inside, so I looked at the inside. We got to keep it rolling. But then I found out there was somebody named Hildreth Medri that designed it, and I cut it, used it as a thing. Found out later there's better pictures. She did a lot of these things. I looked her up. She's an American muralist. Brutalist Art Deco designs, especially famous for painting. These are some of her paintings in the AT&T long distance building lobby, the building with no windows. I thought that all of the phone lines would lead to, their gods, but not all of the gods were women. So this was at one, they're trying to sell this. Of course, we know that that's not a real map. Telephone wires and radio unite to make neighbors of the nation. That's in the lobby. That's in the lobby. That's in the lobby. So this one I realized, they're like, oh, some nations have God, but this one has a king. Brutalist design. He looks like a king also. So China was a part of we're getting the phone everywhere in the world. Africa. So it's right near the Radio City Music Hall. Oh, this is in situ. These are there on the building from the beginning. They don't show them very clearly because they look weird. I see a girl sitting on the moon in this one. Is the guy riding on a lightning bolt? No, he's playing the flute. I thought she was sitting on the moon or something. There she is drawing. So here's the building next door. I noticed the windows have the meander of the swastika. Out with the old, in with the good. So this is one of the cast iron buildings, maybe. This is another building next to it, or part of that Park Row in New York City, where the 33 Thomas. Hey, look, there's the interior of one of the towers. Could you be more vague? Is that an elevator? They're nice. They have those 9 meter, 6 meter, 19 feet, 18. They're tall. This is those Park Row buildings that look like this and have the swastika on them. I think that's what they are. Yeah. 15 Park Row, luxury apartment building, 391 feet tall. Pretty nice. Built for the people, 4,000 people that were going to work for the Associated Press and the Interborough Rapid Transit Company until the completion of the Singer building a few years later that they tore down mysteriously. They called it a brick mountain. That's when you search Colorado brick 1930s telecommunication, in quotes, brick mountains. I must have searched that from an article and then maybe I don't know if I added those quotation marks, but it didn't give me anything about Park Row. These are about Alamosa, where I live, and old at that, from 1925, Chamber of Commerce. How could the PEO save the Great Sand Dunes? Oh, let's make sure they don't blow away. That makes zero sense. So I searched it under, look, it's the same thing, but I clicked the images like this. And then it was nothing about Colorado, and it was everything about that building. You know what I mean? Well, old buildings in telecom. So I did that to let you know. It's like, Paco, why are you showing me something that was from Mexico? Well, because in Argentina, they kind of mirror our stuff. And I just thought you'd want to know, in the 1930s, when AT&T was doing this, right after the building, I guess, in Argentina, on the 13th floor of the Grand Via 28 building, the telephone building in Madrid, they got windows. Why? Huh? 1928 telephone building, and they all loved using their phone. Construction in 26, completed in 29. So really, if it started in 26 and finished in 29, that's less than 3 years. Workforce, 1,000 workers, and it costs this much money. What was it? What do we got going here? Oh, this was the one. It was the first time they ever had this war going, so they couldn't get it going. But early in 1930, 50% of the inhabitants had a phone. August 1930, a milestone was reached, which could be considered the beginning of telemedicine. 200 doctors were gathered in that building, connected to earpieces, and allowed to follow the communication of a doctor in Argentina. and they were saying, look, you can hear a heartbeat because you can't go, there's a war going on here. 1950 countries now connected, 32 internationalism, 1931. So really, boom, radio, just go, get off the bat, connect the world. And somehow they do keep the phones running. 20 million calls, and eventually, who knows? I think my son made 20 million text messages while he was in high school. I had no idea somebody could send 5,000 text messages in one day. He said he's not going to, Dad, what are you going to call my friends, call another guy? What am I, gay? But he can't say things like that. Even he should be hunted down right now and made to feel shame for ever thinking that way. Here's pure, something pure, pure thorium, atomic weight 90. Used so that you anti-knock additive in gasoline, they probably use it and don't use it. It's ethanol is number 2. Applications, alcoholic beverages, rocket fuel, antiseptics, antidotes, a compound of carbon they call ethanol. Number 3, titanium. In its pure form. It's been made pure by that, looks like that cyanide drop method. Pigments, additive coatings, a silvery gray metal makes up 0.44% of the Earth's crust. Well, how much of the Earth's crust makes up the percentage of the Earth would be a good thing to know. It can be processed using the Hunter process. This is how they get it with the chemicals. Your article looks boring.
The weighing and mixing unit. Everything is controlled automatically by a sophisticated and weighs 100 kilograms. 100 of these compacts go to make an electrode, which is the basis for the subsequent melting process. But first, the individual compacts have to be welded together. What looks like a submarine is in fact the welding chamber, the so-called plasma welding line.
Wow, metals are weird. And this is so low quality. It's old, man. They're making it.
A 30,000 amp electric arc heats the titanium ingot until it begins to melt. After 10 hours, the operators remove the top of the furnace. The crucible has cooled down slightly on the outside, but it is still extremely hot in there.
See, you get an opposite reaction, like than putting your tongue on a flagpole. We'll get to these things. Producing pure ductile, the Hunter process. There's always something. But they say, how can you assess the weight of gold in a specimen? Well, gold weighs more. If you have a quartz rock and you weigh it to something else, and it's like, well, this one is that much more, 30% heavier than the other one. Well, 30% of it is something you would want if you don't mind using cyanide to process rocks. Because you'll break it all down and go, okay, here, because rocks are reserved in judgments. They're titans. That's what this is all about. You can figure out, they know how to weigh rocks. Average cubic rock, 165 pounds. But if all of a sudden you have the same size, displaces the same amount of water, but it's 20 pounds heavier, well, it's going to be copper or silver or gold. It's going to be percentages of all those other heavier metals that are in there in the fractions of the percentage. But that's all they need. A fraction of percentage of something that weighs 20 times more adds up. Yummy. People like it. They love gold. The Mary Celeste, Canadian-built American registered merchant brigand. It just disappeared on December 4th, 1870. This guy was driving it. He was like a teetotaler. He was a very religious man with his family. His record of everything, he worked his way up of being the captain at a very young age of one of those big ships. He was the merchant ship Mary Celeste. That's 2 masts, and it was small because he was just going to move and deliver his wife and family and take a load. He was captain the brigand Seafoam. That's another 2 masters. A 3-masted schooner. He learned how to do that. But anyway, on the Mary Celeste, just disappeared. They found the boat still floating and seaworthy, but the lifeboat was gone along with the family. Yeah, here's the Mary Celeste. The boat De Gracia found her in a disheveled but seaworthy condition with her lifeboat missing. Nobody's ever been able to figure it out. 16 tons of alcohol in the hold. Everybody from the guy who wrote Tarzan, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, was fascinated about it. I got into it a little bit. It just seems funny. You know, there was a reward. This could have been an insurance scam. It's weird, but they had weird stuff in it, and I had the time. The Mary Celeste. I remembered the name of Sarah Cobb. Sarah Cobb was supposed to be related to the first one of my relatives to come to the United States. There is a little bit of this Sarah Hughes, who her father, Joseph Hughes, was 37. Yeah, so I looked at it for a minute. I don't think I got into it too much, but I do remember that, you know, I do know my family was here early. This is I don't know how early though. I don't think it was. That would fit. That would fit. I'm one of those honkies. Religious discrimination. What is religious discrimination? Because I've been dealing with it and I got to find out. Is it again the law or is it not? Treating a person differently because of a particular religion, belief, you know, and we have beliefs. Like, what is it like for you? You live in a world, you believe the Bible. The Bible teaches that homosexuality is an abomination. And we live in a country where I believe we had a president of the United States that was gay, living with a gay man called Michelle Obama. That's what I believe. And I believe that we live in a world where it's shameful that we have to, you know, I go to a university where is the, I know I had the tab. Hold up. I'll be able to show you, because we're going to get into the Riot Act and some of this stuff that I'm upset that that's not jumping right out at me. I thought did I show all the pictures of those? Oh, this is, hey, what about that? Drag bingo night. How'd you like to send your kid from Colorado straight off the farm because you're going to get a loan and then we're going to teach you how to play bingo at night and you'll get a degree. This is the equity board from the college that I go. Hey, I could stream this live tomorrow if you want me to. Go to the Core Center and there's free prizes, free and open to all the faculty, the staff, all the people, because they didn't get the message. In the United States, most people are realizing, yeah, you can't maintain a family, much less a nation. And I'm not a nation builder, I'm a family builder. But you can't do it when you go against what the Bible calls an abomination. Our school says, come and dress like this. Title IX, Office of Inclusive Excellence at the Adams State COSI program. San Luis Valley Pride, they're sponsoring it too. Well, that's a group that of professors and stuff that want to affect the politics of our little town. Way to go, gay people. Look, it's going to be featuring this guy. San Vicente. I'm going to pump up the music. I'm too sexy for my halter top. Too sexy for my halter top. I'm a boy that likes to dress like a girl. It's an abomination, right? The United States is coming to a time where you're going to, what? They're going to arrest me? They're going to, take off my channel like when I was giving false information about medicine. Turns out I wasn't. I'm not giving false information that gays doing things to you is not the right way to go about life. It's never been, and they can use the TV, the mass media, the radio, and everything else to weaken people's minds, but that's what they do. The Bible teaches it's always about, the sin of Balaam, being tempted by Balaam. Well, what did they do? They dressed their women's like Jezebel whores and said, go get them, girls. And the girls said, what do we do? Well, offer yourself like this and they'll rub you like that. And then the girl said, oh, really? I like it. Let's go do it. If you can't realize that you're either going to live that life of seeking that sexual fornication, or you're going to separate because God gave you that desire. Separate. Hunter process. Didn't look at that very much. Religious discrimination. What is well, they had something about in the ancient religious discrimination. Of course, the very first one example. Oh, poor persecution of Christians led to the Jewish diaspora under the reign of Herod, and sure it did. Nero persecution. It's a Bible world. Religious discrimination ended in 313. There were no Middle Ages. They added 1,000 years. We can't pretend to even, their idea of like describing it is turning it into propaganda for their cause. The religious persecution is going to be, they're tired of you telling them, no, I do believe the Bible's true and that only certain people are going to go to heaven and other people are not. They don't want to hear it. Why am I not going to heaven? Well, I guess you don't have ears to hear the truth. The truth of the gospel is the stench of death to you. This is satire in the Dragonades. The Dragonades, politically implemented by Louis XIV to force French Protestants, known as Huguenots, to convert to Trinitarian worship. It involved, look, we're going to have this officer live in your house. He is moving into the Huguenot households. Imply permission to mistreat the inhabitants, damage or steal their possessions. Soldiers employed as part of this policy were derisively called as missionary dragoons. Rome is that bad.
One of the exceptions to the employment at will doctrine in Texas is discrimination based on religion. So if an action was taken against you, you were demoted, you were terminated, you got less pay because of your religion, then that's actionable under Texas law. For example, if you are a person who has to wear certain types of clothes because of your religion to the workplace and the employer knows about that, but then changes their policy as to the clothes that you have to wear and fire you because of that, that's because of.
So that's a pretty obvious. That can't be the one I watched. Usually religious discrimination is, they'll twist it. Let's see what we got. Yeah. So that's that guy. Close that. Holy fire. I was watching this too. Got sent to it. Low frequency fire. Look at now. Tracy and Shane are talking about, hey, this is weird. What's going on, man?
To their respective towns or cities. Now, this is not a normal fire. This fire does not burn other things, and we'll explain a little bit the science behind why that is. But what you can do is put the fire on your clothing, or some men are seen putting it over under their beards, and it does not ignite. This happens during the period after the fire starts. It's not forever, but the fire does change as time goes on. Now this,
yeah, it didn't even burn his beard.
right, and there's a lot of footage of that, and now because everyone has a phone, a lot of these things are being, I guess, released, and a lot of people are finding out about it, because I had no idea this type of fire exists or this event has been going on for so long. I would say the Muslims and the Israelis have been trying to prevent this event from happening for a long time, and there is a lot of it is highly regulated. So a set number of Christians from each country are allowed to go in and experience this for themselves. Now, I'm going to play this interview from a priest, and it was his job for 16 years to go and get the fire and observe what happens in there.
In an interview in 1988 with His Beatitude Patriarch of Jerusalem, Diodorus, who was the Patriarch of Jerusalem from 1980 to 2000.
It's like looking in the mirror.
His Beatitude narrated his experience.
I enter the tomb and kneel in holy fear in front of the place where Christ lay after his death
No, he
and
did.
where he rose again from the dead. I find my way through the darkness towards the inner chamber, in which I fall on my knees. Miracle of faith. At a certain point,
I didn't mute that. It muted itself. See also a line of rays. They have been handed down to us through the centuries, the deep things of Satan. Sometimes I may wait for a few minutes. Normally, the miracle happens immediately after I have said the prayers. From the core of the stones where Jesus lay, an indefinable light pours forth. It has a blue tint. I guess he lights it and he rushes outside. I skipped over this part. I didn't know I'd have to read it. Light rises out of the stone. Stone gets covered with a moist cloud. Okay. This is a trick somehow. This is a real place, I guess. The Holy Sepulchre. Looks like it's designed to make low light energy. Why is it not talking? I remember 427.
And one of the other claims of fraud had actually said that,
than normal fire that burns in an oil lamp. Is of a different consistency than normal fire that burns in an oil lamp. At a certain point, the light rises and forms a column in which the fire is of a different nature, so that I am able to light my candles from it.
And there's also reports of candles or torches being lit, even that are not inside of the tomb when this happens. And every year they say it's a little different. It's not identical.
Well, they could make fire come down from heaven if it's bigger, but it does eventually get hot. It sounds like the miracle lasts a few minutes, and these chosen Christians from every nation get to experience it, film it, take it back, and say, they're prepping this world for a non-Jesus savior. It's going to mock.
15 minutes later, I measured the temperature again, and it had reached 320 Celsius by that time.
The miraculous fire lighting the patriarch's candles has been reported to be different from normal fire. A hand placed in the flame is not burned, at least in the first few minutes after the miracle. That led scientists to study the concept of low heat plasma.
Plasma is a state of matter where significant proportion of the particles are charged or ionized. It's considered to be the most abundant state of matter in the universe. It's associated with stars.
I think this is a setup, to what do they got going here? They're going to tie it to the fires. I didn't get to that part. Let's look at it a little more.
It's definitely one of the most interesting things I've ever seen.
Right. And then those images.
Wish I would have noticed that Tracy is wearing tiger eye stone earrings, because that's one of my favorite rocks.
Of the churches, it is reminiscent of the Tesla towers. Just made me think of those.
Yes, it is. I would say that there is some similarity here with Tesla coil technology. So Tesla coils, you normally see like a cylindrical vertical coil that is usually topped with a toroidal or a spherical cap on top. And that is very similar to what we see on some church spires. You will see like a spherical protrusion, or sometimes they have like all these crosses, that will stick out. And even the cross shape itself increases the surface area of the metal components and can probably function very well as an antenna. So yeah. All right. Let's see here. So yeah, so churches are kind of similar in design to Tesla coils when you think about it.
Right. You said something about the building materials of the church. Could the actual Holy Sepulchre could be conducive to.
Yeah. So yeah, one of the types of fraud that they were looking for was the possibility of, electrical components that were snuck inside, but they probably didn't occur to them that the entire structure itself could have been an electrical component. They function in a similar fashion. That was a good point.
They did say that, a long time ago, originally there was a gold cap at the top of the pyramid, the main one. So that would be kind of a conductive material. And then the rest is granite and stone.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, really fascinating. Okay, so now we're gonna discuss the kind of,
Couple
weird
more
fires
minutes.
going on all around the world.
All right. So we do have a handful of fires going on all around the world, but I'm only going to touch on certain ones for now. So I do want to go back to North Carolina and cover the fact that we have new fires and the old fires are still burning in North Carolina. This is the area that was impacted by Hurricane Helene. And I'm going to start here with the Rattlesnake Branch fire. This one has been burning for almost a month, and it's almost 2,000 acres, but it's still only 26% contained. So this is a really slow containment on the part of the firefighters. I don't know why it's taking so long for them to contain this fire. It could have to do with the terrain, but the wind has not been as significant as it was at the start of this fire. So they regardless of the ignition source, we're seeing a lot of fires, also including in Wales as well. This is the only picture of a fire that I could actually get from Wales, but over time, we probably will see more videos and images that come out of the UK, like very evenly distributed along the vertical length of the tree, but only on the left side. And I found that to be strange. It does kind of remind me of like some of the telephone poles and everything that we've seen in the videos that were shown by Jeff Snyder. Well, you'll see one side of the telephone pole is burned, but not the other side. All right. So that kind of covers the fires in Mexico, but we also have fires.
That's good. Let's just keep moving though. The Riot Act. There really was a Riot Act?
Today, we're going to dive into an interesting English phrase, read the Riot Act. This phrase has a fascinating history and a specific meaning in modern English. So, let's explore what it means and how you can use it in your conversations. Read the Riot Act originates from a real historical law in Britain, the Riot Act of 1714. This law was used to prevent riots. The act required a magistrate to read a proclamation to a group of 12 or more people causing trouble.
You can read them. You have to read it. Like if somebody ever, because as I'll hopefully prove, and Lord willing, I thought I saved one of the pictures in case I couldn't get to it that explained, oh no, now I'm not seeing it. Is this it? No. Oh, this is that, this will do it. Yeah, this is the, everything from the Riot Act is now folded into the Title 10 law of the United States. That's what you need to keep looking out for. We'll get to that. 1714, 1711 was the reset. The Riot Act, you got to read them the Riot Act and then tell them, break it up or we're going to kill you or arrest you. And you have to give them a time limit. You have to read them the Riot Act and then tell them, if you don't disperse within an hour or maybe even 15 minutes or 2 days.
If they didn't disperse within an hour, they could be arrested. The act symbolized official warning and law enforcement. In modern English, When someone says they read the Riot Act, it means they gave a stern warning or reprimanded someone. It's when using read the Riot Act in everyday conversations, it's important to understand its serious and authoritative tone. It's most appropriate in contexts where someone is expressing frustration or disapproval of someone else's actions. Act.
They know how to give a firm warning. Oh, yes, they do. So it's folded into the Title 10 of the United States Code. Now, this is everything. You don't think we have a code? Look at that. We got everything. Here's the history. Where? It just says here it is. And it includes somewhere in here chapters. I mean, it just keeps going. Cyber information, humanity. This is our government. We've got the rules for everything, the enlistments, for the Army. Number one thing, look at all these chapters. It's for the Army. It's for the training and education. It's all about service and supply. How is you going to get Wonder what 332 is. Oh, I looked at major system and defense acquisition programs generally. Oh, so that's how we got to that. That's 332. It keeps going because, the whole government, Title 10, can't only be about running the government through its armies. Well, now the Navy and the Marines, education and training, general administration. We really are in a military-powered world. 900 chapters. Air Force, Space Force, civilian pay, schools and camps. And they can read you the Riot Act. Where's the chapter 1500? Okay, now it's just jumping around. Now it's not giving, they've got more laws. I know it. I know they've got other chapters from 16 to 1799, 1800. And they don't have any rules for Space Force yet? Come on. So Title 10, contracts and limitations on lead system integrators, except as provided in subsection B, no entity performing lead system integrator functions in the acquisition of a major system by the Department of Defense may have any direct financial interest in the development or construction of any individual system or element. They really got to go at it, man. They read all these books and they know them all. But reading the Riot Act, wow. The Riot Act was passed in Massachusetts in 1786 because this Shays Rebellion, it was enough saying, hey, things are running fine here. We don't really know if we need this national government. It's like somebody that, is it the Maxwell Act or something, where Native Americans had been living in a land and around New Mexico, Colorado border, and all of a sudden people showed up and say, we own all this land and you want to live here, you owe us rent. And they took it to the courts, and the court said, yeah, that's their land. You guys either pay them rent or get off. Then they didn't. They read the Riot Act to them and then killed them. Because authorities were required to read the proclamation that referred to the Riot Act before they could enforce it, the expression to read the Riot Act entered the common language as the phrase meaning to reprimand severely. So it doesn't matter if you read it on Wikipedia or somewhere else. It's the same info. It goes back to the Riot Act of 1714, 1715 in Great Britain. Authorized local authorities to declare any group, it had to be 12 or more, like 12 disciples or more, you are unlawfully assembled with the guy teaching about Jesus who didn't even know how to keep the Sabbath. That's what they killed him for. But he is the Sabbath rest. And the Judaizers that have the religious problem. And initially, in 1710, it says there were some riots, outbreak, disorder. Supporters of the Tories attacked the dissenters. You know, I have been teaching for a while. 1711 was the reset, 711, you know, they added 1,000 years. But the Riot Act started because of the coronation riots. And then they rioted again for the same reason. And then they rioted again for the same reason. But the coronation riots were after the reset. This guy dressed up and said, I am your new king. I am related to the king and I'm the new king. And everybody else that was a survivor of the remnant of, you know, there was a reaping. There had to be a reaping after the 1,000 years, the golden age of where the wheat and the tare grew together. And then there was your orphan trained brain reset fugitives, they say. And this guy came out the gate going, I'm your king. That's going to cause a riot. No, you're not. Well, fortunately, they had this Riot Act up their sleeve. So they read them the Riot Act and started, you know, we're going to kill you. And the thing is, it's a Whig. And the Whig Party moved to the United States and it became the Republican Party. Whig. Political party in Great Britain, England, but the Whigs became the the Catholic, emancipation, supporting the monarchy, the Roman Catholic Stuart kings, the Jacobean uprising. You know, Jacobeans like to wear those Phrygian caps. And they were our founding fathers. During the American Revolution, the Whigs were the party more sympathetic to America. From the term Whigamore. (1800) political party of the United States called the Whig. They were the major two parties. William Henry Harrison, presidents, Zachary Taylor, Millard Fillmore. Other people were Daniel Webster. You've heard of his famous dictionary. John Quincy Adams. He didn't make it. It was the Protestant Christians who were really Freemason types. They believed in the manifest destiny. Got to get rid of the Native Americans. They became the Whigs. They claimed to be the anti-Masonic party. They became the Republicans. But they're two heads on the same snake. They're two heads on the same snake. So these riots, series of outbreaks of public disorder, which spread across England in the 1710. The Tories, the Roman Catholics, attacked the meeting house of the dissenters, and they read them the Riot Act. They said, we are now going to kill you. Oh, they didn't have the Riot Act, so they needed it. But their glorious revolution, since Satan has been loosed, the Wide Road Church is always going to enforce the Trinity under the threat of, we'll burn you alive, or we'll peel your skin off, or we'll torture you in a murderous way because you don't believe us, what we told you about what the Bible says. No, you can't read the Bible. Oh, you want me to read it to you? I'm going to read it to you in a language you don't know. Because it was total trust in the Roman Catholic Church. It's total trust in the United States government right now. You still working to make America great again? Oh, did you never hear about the coronation riots? These guys just popped up and wanted to be, we're your new kings. We built all the mud flood buildings. Nothing to see here. We're going to take the kingdoms and make them nations, and eventually your children will dress like girls and you'll like it. So these continued the whole thing. And there's always been, the narrow road, and then there's been these high church mobs that they can work these people into a frenzy. They know how to manipulate the mind. They've got average looking guy. This guy probably works at a bank or something. But he's honored to be a part of this because it's what my daddy did. It's what my mommy did. What mommy did. Just a part of life. Where's the party? Latitudinarians? Some people are going to want to fast and others aren't. Their whole story is so bad. I mean, honestly, look at this. You could even find people that like, oh, we want this version of the Bible. It's Toryism. They don't really care as long as you believe in something and the Bible. So the Peterloo massacre, let's just keep going. Happened in Manchester, Lancashire, England. 18 people died, 400 to 700 were injured when cavalry, these guys, charged into a crowd of 60,000 people who had gathered to demand, say, we don't want your freaking Hanoverian kings. We don't want to be told what we can say, when we can say, how we can do it. Well, they read them the Riot Act, and then they said, charge. And so they charged. Are you one of these people that would charge? If your government said charge, here's people. We don't think that the vast majority of us hate this idea. Oh, well, I've got a job and I ride a horse and they told me to charge. So suffer, bitch. What kind of people do that? There's your friggin' cap on a pole. Friggin' caps on poles. The kings are saying, down with your freedom. But the people that were using the friggin', this was all a plan. You've been encompassed about. While you're waiting to be encompassed about, you're the frog starting in warm water, and gradually it's being turned up until this is going to be me. Not the guy on the horse. I know that looks like me, but why are the old fat white guys killing people? Join us while we read you the Riot Act. Pro-democracy reformers. Well, they don't know what democracy is. So the Winnipeg General Strike of 1919 say crazy things. It seems that the people in charge and make all the money are constantly paying people to convince us we should be happy. I just lived through 25 years of the years 2000, where every single president is able to just keep saying, I'm the best president ever. Look at the stock market. It's just, it can't stop going up because of me. Whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, it goes up. And I don't remember it ever getting better. I remember it always being bad. 1919, famous, influential Canadian strike. 6 weeks. Could you imagine today if Winnipeg shut down for 6 weeks? Could you imagine if Des Moines, Iowa, Rochester, New York, St. Augustine, Florida, a town of, 500,000 people, they just shut down. No, we're not working today because you treat us bad. I can't imagine that. They have our mind thinking like, should I watch more videos of these crazy mommies who let their boys dress like girls? Because they're being told in the newspapers, on the radio, the TV, the internet apps, that there's no biological male or female, and they're into it, man, because they don't believe in God, and the only thing they care about is the dopamine when they ejaculate. The idea that this is not their home and that anything, that God says, those bad guys are going to distract you with women who dress like whores and want you to have extramarital sex with them. It's called fornication. And then boys will dress like girls and say, well, close your eyes, I'm a girl. And they buying it because things are weird. Scenes of a big general strike, which 6 weeks threatened to paralyze the labor situation in many Canadian cities. Do you feel another uprising's coming? Do you think the United States can get right through it? Do you think those Britons had a reason to believe they were worked as slaves? Do I believe you are being treated worse than a slave? Because when you think they're poisoning you and then this promised retirement heaven is never going to happen. But this was the world. Those are rebuilt buildings. These people think their ancestors built those buildings. Nobody read the Bible right till mud flood was Armageddon, flat earth nation, golden age past. Now we know. We can look at this. Oh, it's time to arrest them. They must have read them the Riot Act and said, look, enough is enough. This was, it's pulled up because it's one of the times they still use the Riot Act. I had to find some examples in the Wikipedia. You're all wrong. You're not slaves being treated like crap. So get back to work. Or I'm going to kick in your butt. I used to listen to a band called Vector. And I wanted to hear them, but I also thought at the time I was taping, well, I wonder if Vector Vortex, I wonder what that is. So I looked at the images under Vector Vortex. I didn't see any of the band. Just showed Vector Vortex things. Everything's all Vector Vortex. My electric mini bike is not like that one. Mine, I wouldn't mind getting one of these, but right now I only need to get around town. I really only have about 7.5 months where I can get out there in the desert, in the mountains, where I live. But that's pretty cool because you could carry a charger with you. That really wasn't the band. Have you ever heard the band Vector? This is one of the I bought this when I was leaving Morris, I'd left Mazan, going up to Route 80. I was going off to Bible college. I think it was 1984. I was old. I was already like 22, 23, out of the army. Needed to listen something. Hey, Vector put out a new album. I'd never even heard of them, but it was on sale. I like the video where it shows them singing.
I have special friends, all of consequence, living out their dress of skills. Time has held them well.
It was kind of punk rocky, and people thought it was kind of punk rocky. I liked it.
I have special friends, all of consequence, living out their dress of skills. Time has held them well, so the mirror tells, though my questioning reveals. Manic and virtue, nothing real inside you. How can I open your eyes?
I meant it. I meant it when they showed that. That was Steve Taylor, the great Steve Taylor, played the guitar in this band. At the same time, I picked up the album. What was the name of that band? Ba. What was the name of that band? Was it Vector? No. But I know I got Vector and Ping Pong Across the Abyss. That's the 77s. It was a band called the 77s, I think. But that's not the one that played Ba Ba Ba.
Some people preach, and you know they do very well. They take all your money, you can go to hell, and that's all. That's all. And you could have Jesus, and that's all.
All right, well, that doesn't really sound new wavy. When I was dating my wife there for like 2 years, she didn't like this album. I did. That doesn't sound new wavy. That just sounds like kind of like that rock and roll music. What?
Who argue that
Canada.
You're asking me, I am not word at all. I mean, as you guys almost kind of pointed out, I mean, what makes an expert is pattern recognition, right? We've seen this playbook before, right? Instill fear at the same time that you come out with a fast-track approved vaccine, a terrifying vaccine, a self-amplifying mRNA vaccine, you know, for avian flu, and you're trying to create and drive a market to get vaccinated. And, you know, Clayton, you know, I listened to you just a moment ago, and you know, like you, I don't think this playbook works anymore. I mean, their big show was COVID. They've been trying to do it again. I remember our smallpox pandemic that they tried to scare us with, right? That was the whole thing was silly. This one, you know, although I'm a little dismissive, you know, avian flu, if it does jump to humans, which there's no, you know, conclusive evidence that's doing that to any significant degree, it's all potential. That does have a higher mortality rate. That is difficult, but
is this helping you to instill fear, fight the fear?
Prepared for the media storm around his own personal life, but maybe was not prepared for the dark forces that might undermine him once he took the job. Maybe because I don't know why, right? Because who would be? Who would see this coming? Because the pro-war faction is just so strong and deep-stated, if there's such a word.
And he also was very pro-Israel. He was also very pro-Israel. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm pro-Israel, but I'm also pro-truth. And just to be clear on that, and I actually went on Fox and several other networks when his name was first announced as being nominated for Secretary of Defense. And I said, listen, I think that, you know, the charge that he wasn't qualified, he hadn't run a big business, he wasn't a general and all that stuff. I said, listen, the guys who have all these qualifications have been doing a terrible job in the past. Maybe we need a breath of fresh air. And if he can do the things that he said and, you know, reorient the Pentagon, bring back the warrior ethos, hold people accountable,
Bring back the warrior ethos. I wonder how that's going to work with this football player at not Christian Liberty Academy, Adams State University. Mommy and daddy sent him away from home. And it's fun to dress up like this. People do it in the movies. And they can win free prizes and have entertainment. Wow. All of this, and we're waiting for a time. For what? You know, that they're going to read us the Riot Act. They're going to take all the water. I saw somebody send me a link today, you know, water isn't a human right. If a company can own the access to the water, then they can charge you for it. That's capitalism. No, this whole world is Bible world. I started out the reading today, you know, the Father had me, the man who the veil was lifted for, that made the first channel, Flat Earth Nation, Golden Age past, that we are bags of bones with cell phones, black goo so sublime Your spine is sending instinct to your mind over matter. Flight or fight, embrace the night, disgrace the light of the world. That first part of my reading was because that's what's going on in our head. You do have the black goo. Give me 1 second. You're going to want to see this. I had my normal background. See behind my head here where I have the arrow pointed? This causes in your brain condensation on the outside of the fluid that's going through this heated up spot. It drops on this black goo and goes into your spine. So you don't have to worry if sand is coming into your eye. You'll blink. It's your instinct. It's how we're run because we're electrical impulses. The rocks are organic matter reserved in judgment. We're all going to be reserved in judgment. It's why the rocks could cry out. There's no way I can give my message all at one time. This is why Paul, when he was speaking in the Starfort cities in Eutychus, as Paul continued to preach on and on, as was his style, fell into a deep sleep to where he fell off of the 3rd-story loft. Does that sound like something a hunter-gatherer barely, above a caveman fearing God would do? No, they were living in Starfort cities. He fell off a 3rd fort. Starfort died. Paul brought him back to life, and he kept preaching. The Bible's real. It's true. The Bible is what happened. Everything built on the globe and Rome being normal is a lie. They're going to bring back JFK was a Catholic, but he was fighting the man. Baloney, he was not. This all goes back to the late 1600s at the end of the 1,000-year reign, when the wheat and the tares knew who each other were and what they were doing, and they were forming the Dutch East Indies and all these other trade companies that ended up making the Delanos and the Roosevelts and the other people rich by selling heroin to China. And then they embarrassed China, and it's been a nonstop progression towards our being encompassed about currently. And it will only continue to get worse because America's not going to be made great. I'm not going to tell you that because that would be a lie. I'm going to tell you rarely, but I have had experiences with God, and he revealed that everything Jesus said was true. The stones had to cry out because they're reserved in judgment. Jesus said he was coming back in that generation, so he had to. Everybody else is lying. Me and my friends are not. That's why we're never going to tell you anything else. We know we're called, we're chosen, we're predestined. Our hearts have been changed, our eyes have been opened. We're on the narrow road, other people aren't. We're to preach to everybody like the people the Bible was written to, knowing that it's going to be the stench of death to the vast majority of them. But our brothers and sisters, Jesus is calling their name, and they will be found, every single one of them. And the people in heaven that have been martyred for his name will say, how long will until we're avenged? Till the last one is saved. That has, by God, been called, chosen, predestined, and then legally adopted to be co-heirs in the family of God. And it gives us the insight that this is not our home where we live, where they have drag bingo night. It's not our home, it's their home. We're never going to tell you anything else because we have your best interest at heart. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. Aloha. Arriba dirty. Ciao. Sayonara. Auf Wiedersehen. Nakamin. Adios. Hasta luego, Kaya man.